We'll see. All right. Welcome to the AI Institute at Broward College, Artificial Intelligence Conversations with Educators. I'm your host, Rick McCawley, and we're here to empower human educators aided with AI tools to make a difference for the future. This is an ongoing episode. This will be episode number 3. The first one, we learned what AI is, how it works, and how it can work for us. In the second one, we talked about prompting and different applications and ways that we could align ourselves as educators to make the best out of this situation and make education process even better. We don't want to use AI to replace us, far from it. We want it to amplify the good things about human beings and stay in its lane. So tonight is going to be episode 3, designing human-centric learning experiences and prompts. So this is just some fun I had. Firefly just introduced that. Firefly is Adobe's generative AI image making application. In fact, it's a suite of both 3D generative work eventually, and currently it's image making capabilities. You can use yourself for free if you go to Adobe Firefly, and you can check it out on the web. You can upload a picture, you can have it make it in the style of. So in this particular instance, I took the logo on the left here, the white one, and then I put it up as a structure. So it basically follows the structure. I put in a word prompt, I added a style to it, and you get the image you see on the right. The bottom left is the same thing. So the black and white structure, so the structure stays there, but when I say a sandcastle on the beach in the desert, or I say an overview of drone shot, giving it perspective, it generates the images you see there. In the 5th episode, we're going to be going all in on image generation. So if you want to learn how to do that kind of stuff with Midjourney and Firefly and even Stable Diffusion and some other ones, I'm going to do a complete course on that. I work for Adobe as an Adobe community expert, and I also do podcasts all the time. I've been working with Adobe products since Photoshop 1.0. And every day, and there I am. That's Photoshop 1.0. I used on that machine. You see on the right, that's me when I was about 20-something years old. 1985, that picture was taken. That's a Macintosh Plus, black and white screen, 9 inches, I think, across by 6, something like that.
I wasn't even born.
Yeah. So it's a double density floppy disk, which were expensive. So the whole kit right there was about $1,500, and I would made my money from paper routes and that kind of thing. So I took that same Macintosh into the Miami Herald when I started there, and in the late 80s. So I started working at the Miami Herald when I was 15. Oh, no, I'm sorry, when I was 18, and then worked there for 15 years. So here's some of the stuff at the Herald. So I photographed the first space shuttle launch for United Press International. I photographed the Pope, the presidents, Carter, Nixon, Reagan, not Nixon, Reagan. I also photographed Mel Fisher the day he found the Atocha. I was the only person to dive with him and found the first treasure chest. So I've had a pretty good life, not needless to say. In the bottom left, I did a 12-part series about photographers on WLRN. And it won a bunch of awards. And then that's me scuba diving in Palau. That's Jake's seaplane, which is a Japanese seaplane that sunk during battle in the islands of Palau. I've been 2,600 dives in right now, something like that, 28 maybe. So this is what we talked about last week. If you missed this episode, I promise. Is there a way to get this thing off of there? How can I get that hidden? Anybody know the trick to hide this puppy up here? I just want to have it go off of the screen. Oh, well. Okay. So we talked last week about copyright. We talked about fake news, bias, law enforcement, its use of AI, the jobless fears that everybody has. Basically, the jobless fears is 30% of people's jobs are going to go away. You've seen it already. You've done self-checkout at CVS. You know what that's about. The Amazon warehouses are all full of robots now. And very, very soon, all the automobiles delivering your Amazon products, et cetera, are going to be self-driving. They have a complete McDonald's that runs on nothing but AI. Call centers, completely doing the same thing. So last week we went into a deep dive. I'm still editing it. And we talked about and demoed some basic tools that you guys are probably already familiar with. And then this week, we're going to have two things we're going to do. First, conversation with educators. We're going to have a designing learning experiences. So we're going to talk about new tools that privilege the human in every single student. I believe that the goal of every educator today would be to divide the line between what AI should be doing with our students, like a calculator for a tax accountant, okay? It does the hard work. You would not ask your tax accountant not to use a calculator, but you also wouldn't accuse them of cheating if they did. So that's how you want to draw the line. And so what we're going to figure out how to do is, where do you draw that line? In fact, I'm going to have an assignment for you. Here are the 5 actions that I want you to, got the number wrong there. 5 actions I want you to do. Number 1, we're going to help you figure out how to craft your syllabus. And what we're going to do is ask you, what do you think it should be legal for your AI to do for your student? So, and what do you think is the responsibility of the student? I want you to start writing that down, and that's going to be a long-term project. I want you to actually think about it as an educator. Where's that dividing line? How do I magnify using AI like a calculator works for a tax accountant? And then how do I talk to that tax accountant and make sure I get the best legal means of reducing my taxes? Because they'll ask me some smart questions about, hey, did you donate some stuff to some nonprofit? Yeah. So then we're going to talk about designing learning experiences, because here's the deal. Graphic design, interestingly enough, used to be about, when I started in the year 2000, it was desktop publishing. 90% of all of my students graduated, they went into desktop publishing. A lot of them went to the Miami Herald, they went to the Sun Sentinel, they went to all the magazines, newspapers, etc., that were, still working. Today, 0.0. Nobody does that anymore. They're doing experiences. In fact, I'm going to take off the word graphic altogether, because we're no longer making graphics. We're no longer making images that way. We're making experiences of a website, experiences, social media marketing and advertising. Advertising agencies have completely gone upside down. There's no TV channels where you watch the commercials. You're watching Netflix. So to get to people's hearts and minds and to work with those ideas, you've got to think conceptually. You've got to think as an experience designer. When you walk into, what I usually do is I say, when you walk into Winn-Dixie, what's your experience? When you walk into Publix, shopping is really a pleasure. And that happens because some designers have thought about that experience. When you interact with the website and you can't find the right button, or I can't make this stupid thing at the top go away, well, it kind of hides itself over time, but So that means there's something wrong about the design, and it's not intuitive. The iPhone is pretty much the epitome of simple to use. You don't need an owner's manual. I mean, certainly there's little tricks and things you find out over time that aren't totally intuitive. But when you opened up MS-DOS and you put in the command line, yeah, that's a life I am willing to get rid of. So going forward, then the other thing we're going to do, play with some AI tools. And I'm going to make that interactive. So I want you to talk to me as I'm kind of demonstrating what they are, and then tell me how you've used it, just like we had Abhishab talk about what he's doing with that tool. So I definitely want to get in that conversation. And then help us design an AI policy for Broward College. We as a college right now have to do the heavy work of figuring out, how do you navigate this thing for the whole college, for everybody? And then down to the class level, down to the student handbook level, down to your syllabus level. So I'm going to ask you to kind of help me think through the process. So number 1, human-centric EDU. We're going to talk about what it is to have a human-centric thing. Is Natalie on the line with us? If you are, please to speak up. Okay, so unfortunately, I'm going to have to check in a minute. So I was expecting Natalie would join us, and unfortunately, you're waiting to get let in. I'm going to stop sharing for a second because it appears that there's some people waiting to get in that are not getting in. Okay. Somebody help me with this. There's got to be something, a window somewhere that says let people in. Yeah,
So
okay.
open the participants down at the bottom. Down at the
Eric,
bottom.
you can make someone else to be a co-hosting. So if there's anyone on the waiting room, we can let him to be in without interrupting you.
Ah, okay. Where do I go do that?
For example, click for the name of Tulia, and you will gonna make her to be as a co-hosting.
Who would like to
Click
do
for
this?
any name.
Would you?
I am driving and looking for my phone.
Oh, okay. Hey, Josh,
Go over the picture and click on the little blue, the 3 dots
okay, gotcha.
of anybody and make them co-host.
Andrew, are you okay with doing that?
Yeah, not a big deal. Do you see, you can make me a co-host? Do you see that?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, and then if I see people, I'll let them in.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, cool.
My girlfriend's trying to get in, so I'd like that. And there's a student named Natalie, hopefully coming in.
Okay, I'll look for them.
All right, let me get back to this. I've got the AI companion running down here too, so I'm doing some stuff that's not my normal way here, but let's see if we can work it out. All right, here we go. Everybody see my screen now?
Yes.
Here's what I've got going on. So yeah, if I'm listening, but I'm working. Okay, so perfect. No worries. This is one of those things. So I will edit this part out, obviously, before I package it up and put it up there. So episode 2 will be up by next week, and then this one also. So this is episode 3. I plan to do 6, but I think I'm going to do 8 because I have some other things. There's always something new to say, right? So I'll show you AI companion after a little bit. All right, so we start with the human part of it. So let me start over. So the episode 2 agenda is going to be starting with human-centric EDU. So designing an experience for your student that aligns to your best practices and ways of doing this. So all of us got to figure out. In fact, I've got a couple of surprises for you tonight because Joshua and I have been cooking up some things that demonstrate what you can do with AI that you can't do by yourself. The way you can amplify who you are and amplify the student to be a self-driving pursuer of knowledge and curiosity. Then we're going to check out Perplexity AI, talk about that, the GPT store. What's a GPT? How do you front load the preferences for your GPT experience so that you get exactly what you want? And we'll look at the Hume.ai empathy AI. It's called EVI. It's an empathetic voice interface that will be plugged into all of your things in the future. Stay tuned for that. Turbo Learn's being used by Duke and Princeton University, MIT, Oxford, and others. And it's basically, you take your audio transcript or you just open up your laptop when you're in a class lecture, and it makes copious notes that are fantastic, then gives you flashcards and quizzes that it self-generates. If you have a YouTube video you just watched, pop in the URL, it goes up there and sucks down the transcripts and then does the same thing with whatever you put in. It's awesome. And then EDU Aid is basically a educator's aid in every way, shape, and form. Crafting information, crafting lesson plans, making quizzes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really kind of an exciting world. And all of these things are happening within a year or two. So I'm going to start by just saying this. Behind this box is I want you to make a list, and I'd literally like you to make a list because we'll talk about that in about 20 minutes, of what you think, things you think you would like your student to use AI for, that you will allow them on your syllabus. You say, you can use it for this. Let me suggest one just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. As a tutor, not giving you any answers, but you're allowed to use it as a tutor. We're going to use this to basically craft the syllabus so we can teach to these people. And then what do you expect of your students? And this is what I recommend you put right on your syllabi. You say, I expect you to be the one that does the research, you to be the one that makes the final decision, you're the ones that makes the choices, you're the one collaborates with your classmates to work on a project together. You're the one that has, what are those responsibilities? So I've got 20 of them loaded up for you that I'm going to reveal a little bit, but I want you to think about that. Because each one of you is going to be crafting a syllabus because that's your responsibility. That's going to clearly state to the student what you believe are the separation between what the bot does and what you as a student are responsible for. That's the way we start this process. So if you're afraid of AI, just draw that line a lot closer to the student being responsible for 100% of it if you want to. No problem there, but just realize what you're doing and some of the opportunities you might be missing if you don't include the bot for a support agent. All right, so this is the part I was hoping Natalie would be here. She will be there next week, I think, also. But Natalie's a student in my class, and she's studying graphic design, and she's a little bit older than most students. And so we've been talking about every single time in my classes, the 4-hour class, we talk about this constantly because I'm involved in it. But I also want to test this out and see if I can actually make better students. I have seen an increase in the quality of the design work that's exponentially better than it is. And we're using it in our branding class. So the other day, we have to create a persona group for an app that we're designing and a marketing strategy for an app that we're designing, right? Social media marketing for a brand, I'm sorry. And we had to do the research. What are the demographics for the average age of a college professor? It's 42.7. And what's the demographics as far as male, female percentage, et cetera? So they did research and they had actual facts that they could back up. We could nail down into the details. What ethnicity are they? What country are they from of origin? Are they recent immigrants or not? We could ask all kinds of questions of AI. Now, we as graphic designers in the past, we create 3 persona groups, and we basically would do, we guess. And that was not accurate. All right, so here's Natalie's story. She left a career as a 4th grade art teacher after 5 years of doing this because the red tape, the BS that came down from the state of Florida, that they're teaching to the test and your art budget got cut. The belief that they wanted you to have your students fall in line and do the right thing. And she then came to me after we talked for a long time about AI. And we spent an hour and a half after class talking about this. And she said, you know, in the 4th grade, I'm not sure how much AI you'd want to have in there because I worry about the fundamentals of what every educator, and she's a really brilliant educator. And it saddens me that she's left that profession. But here was what we ended up. The last part of it, I said, was there anything you did that you really believe was instrumental in doing your job so well? And she said this: I filled a bowl with colored tape and I left the room for 2 hours. And when I come back, now think of this. Now, here's where I want you to remember that one teacher that did something that changed your life. I want you to put that in your head right now. So this is what she did. She said, use your imagination, collaborate. She didn't say it out loud. She did it with this. Here's your prompt. So I'm going to call this the prompt. And that's what I want you to imagine as you're designing the experience for your students. If you gave them a prompt of a bowl of tape, what would you expect to get at the other end? This is what she got. She came back to the classroom and they had built a bridge between 2 desks. They were taking erasers and racing across back and forth on this bridge. They were giggling and laughing and having fun. They had put this together, all 10 of them in the classroom. And then when she got back, she said, hey, this is amazing. You guys did a great job. And then she said, can it take more weight? And she took about a dozen books weighing 10 pounds and put on top. And all of a sudden, it started to crash. It started to bend in the center. So she said, hey, do you think you could make it so it can support the extra weight? Sure enough, they spent 20 more minutes, they figured it out. So these are kids that collaborated, had fun, looked into their imagination, and came up with a piece of tape and built a bridge out of it. Then they solved an engineering problem, and that was before recess. Now imagine that every prompt you make is this creative, this much of an experience, that you let them drive autonomously their knowledge growth, their curiosity, their engineering skills, and their collaboration with each other. That's what teaching a human is. Human-centric education learning experiences is the future with AI. If we do it any other way, we're cheating our students and ourselves out of an opportunity to get back to teaching humans the same way that one educator, and I bet you it was something stupid and small that you didn't think about at the time. And I'll tell you what mine was. We had my art teacher actually gave us a little ball of clay and said, make something. She left. She came back. And then she saw all of them, and I had made this little face, and it had eyelids and eyelashes and mouth and the hair and all this kind of stuff. She held it up in front of the class, in front of everybody, says, oh my God, Rick is an artist. Look at this thing. 50 years later, I am an artist all my life. I'm gainfully employed doing what I did then. And that one educator said that to me, and it changed everything. So I know you want to be the hero of that story. So here's my daughter. She's 27 right now. She works at Sephora. She's a manager there in Davies. Go by and say hey. She has the same last name as me. She's a lot taller, about 6'3", I think now. So she did the same thing to me. She said, this is why I was crying with Natalie, right? Is that Natalie didn't know this story, and she hadn't seen this picture I was hoping to show her tonight. But my daughter said she saw some video or whatever it was that somebody had made some purses out of tape. Now, I don't have the full picture, but she made a complete outfit, shoes, socks, everything. Okay, I've got it. And all out of tape. So that's kind of the extra story. And the reason why, you know, I believe that there's something creative about it. So let's use human-centric educational model. And then let's decide what the bot does and what the student does. So here's what I want you to start doing. This is what I want you to do. Right now, if you have on your syllabus nothing about AI, this is what they think. They think you think they're going to cheat. Now, if they're lazy, they're going to say, I don't really care about this class, so I am going to cheat. And AI makes it really, really super simple. From Socrates' time, it basically, the students have been doing that all along. There's a billion ways you could buy a guy a beer, you can do whatever. You know, basically, you're not going to fix that. But what you can fix is your relationship with them. If you open up a conversation, and you should, how have you used AI in class? This is what we're doing next week. This will be the whole episode next week. Did it help you? How did it help you? What did you use it for? And the really good students are going to tell you some insights as to how they use it to amplify who they are. And you'll find that conversation next week. Did you feel like you were cheating? Be honest. If you're honest with them, it's like they're in a safe space. They realize you're human and you're worried about them cheating. But they aren't interested in cheating. They really want to get their education. So here's the mindset you have to adopt. We got to make sure the student does these things. This is it. This is the future. One thing I'll add to this is the #1 word, according to LinkedIn, is adaptability. That's the #1 word for the next generation. Adaptability. Creative critical thinking. I think those go hand in hand. Social and emotional intelligence. Awesome. Anatomy, lifelong learning, autonomy, agency, and ethical responsibility. So when you trust them and you say you can use AI in this way, you trust them, you verify, and you give them hard, fast rules like any parent would do. You can't do this and you can do that. Then they're going to give that responsibility. They're going to realize that you're trusting them and they're going to live up to it because they're human and they want to please people. Inquisitiveness and problem solving. So here's my thing with the syllabus. Pretend like you're handing the keys to your own personal automobile to your student. You would hand a big, long list of things you have to do. You would check their driver's license. You make sure they have insurance. You make sure they're of age to drive. And they have, you know, no traffic records or whatever. And then you're going to trust them, hand them the keys. But you're going to tell them a bunch of stuff they got to do. And they're going to be okay with it. They're going to go to the store, pick up ice cream for everybody in the class and come back. And you're all going to have a great time. So signature worthy is the second thing I'm going to do. So when you ask your student, here's how I suggest you do it. Is it signature worthy? What does that mean? Okay, so I'm an artist and I create billions and billions of photographs. How many do I sign, put up on a wall, put on a frame, and put in an art gallery and sell it for $5,000? Just my signature worthy ones. Signature means an investment of your human capital to make something worthy of having with pride signing it. That's your question to the student. Ask it just that way. In fact, I had a student, educator today that said they tried that and it worked. And the conversation opened up. They want to be trusted. Okay, second thing, the car key syllabus, right? So write your AI statement just like you're giving them the. So with great power comes great responsibility. And oh, by the way, I looked that up. It wasn't just from Spider-Man's Uncle Ben from Stan Lee's, lineage, right? It was Voltaire who was basically talking about that same thing. He never used those words according to ChatGPT. I do believe that's correct because I also double checked it with Copilot, which I always do. All right, so here's just a little bit of fun. So I wrote this big long thing about how you give some, you give control, autonomy to your student. And then I created this song. So here's the lyrics. I asked it to write a rap song, and so you can listen to it. And now you can hear it because Suno, SUNO.ai, you can go there tonight, make your own rap song or any country western song or whatever. We'll take a little visit of that maybe later on if we get a chance. And here you go.
Yo, educators, architects of what's to come. Too long we trap minds, made learning numb. Both facts, bored kids, creativity crushed. This ain't the future. This system's busted. World needs thinkers, doers, souls on fire. So let's ditch the textbook, spark minds to fly higher. AI, VR tools to build, not just to see. Unleash those dreamers, set their spirits free. We got a question, challenge what we're told. Ancient wisdom sheds light, but stories ain't old. Philosophy ain't dead, let's make it alive. Students debate the greats, their own ideas thrive. Teachers not a educated.
Okay. Sorry for that. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, I
Okay.
can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
You got to hear me rap, okay. All right, so here's what we're basically, LinkedIn did say, literally they said they've adaptability is the #1 word for dealing with this stuff, right? So it's a mindset goal. There you go again, and just kind of reiterating. And then here's how you do that. So creativity is ideation, iteration. Critical thinking is analysis and decisiveness, collaboration, et cetera, et cetera. So I think in the future, we are going to have an AI assistant for us educators, and we're going to have that help us craft the experience for our students in better ways that think about things. Even your ethical research, your summary, the way that you do your work has to mimic and the behavior that you want your students to learn about as they go older and they drive their own educational car down the road. Imagine the accessibility. Even if someone doesn't speak English very well, or they have a different modality, not to mention all of these accessibility learning styles and things like that. These are software that exist right now anyway. And you might have tried something like Otter. If you haven't, I would, or any of the other tools. So I've had Zoom calls. I went back to my Zoom calls during the pandemic. I put the transcripts through, and then I turned it into lesson notes on how to do stuff in Photoshop along with directions. Then I had it go search for YouTube videos and LinkedIn learning videos, and I made a list and I handed it to my students the next time I taught this class, and I didn't have to do that. In fact, if you don't know this, I'm the reason why we had LinkedIn learning at Broward College. I met Linda Weinman, way back in the 90s when she started her company. There were 10 of us in the room, and she was talking about, oh, I'm going to make these videos and you can learn. And she asked me if I wanted to go work for her. She sold it for $1 billion to LinkedIn. That's why it's called LinkedIn Learning Today. I went to George Masterful, I think was his name, in charge of the books at Broward College. And I basically said, hey, we need to use this. All right, so here's what's allowed according to ChatGPT. And this is what I want you to take away. So all of this is content's going to be put in a Dropbox, and I'll drop the link in there for you all so you can get this access to the entire PowerPoint and all the others. If you're inside the Broward College tenant, send me an email and I'll send you the OneDrive link to everything from all 3 episodes, every PowerPoint, every slide, everything. There's about, 800 documents in there. And if you're in our AI Institute program at CTEL right now, you have all the links in D2L as well, okay? And then here's what the students' exclusive responsibilities are. This is just a starting point, but I want you to make up this wall between the two things. And then I want you to put it in your syllabus and then explain it and have the conversation. What do you mean by self-reflection? etc., until they understand what they're supposed to do. Because if they don't know they're doing wrong, or you haven't made it clear, you just haven't done your job. So I think this is super important that you spend some time and decide this. Now, I absolutely believe you got to try it, see if you can break it, try it on a couple of students that you trust, have that conversation so you see where your line is and draw the line carefully, because that's what you're going to have to uphold, just like the syllabus. It's a contract, it's binding, right? So we have to think about it. Now, here's the 10 different prompt methods that we talked about in the last episode. So hallucination resistant prompts, we learned that AI does not contain the internet inside of it. It's just a framework of understanding. If you say peanut butter, it says jelly, but an advanced map of the world, if you will. There was a dog video that you might have remembered that kind of talks about a world model. As we move right now, we're working with ChatGPT 4, which is based on text and images, still images. Now, ChatGPT 5 is going to be based on video, audio, etc. And then AI resistant prompts. That means that alignment between what the tutor does and what the bot does and what the student does, okay? Historic character role playing, etc., etc. And I'm going to walk through these and you can kind of see, here is what the pattern recognition. So some of the large language models have access to the internet. Some of them have a cutoff date. So if you ask it, and here's the way you tell, ask it who won the Super Bowl. And if their cutoff date where access for the internet live was last year, then it won't know who won. In my case, I did that with ChatGPT. It claimed it was disconnected from the internet, but it gave me the right answer. I double checked it 3 times because I couldn't believe. And then it kept saying, I have no connection to the internet. I'm like, you predicted the end of the Super Bowl game and who won and in what happened? Yeah, no, I don't know what's going on there. And then AI resistant is human-centered stuff and AI assistance. What's it allowed to do? What's it good at, right? And then AI resistant debate class. So debate's a great thing. Give it a prompt and have it play an act. In fact, if you're resistant to this, start a debate with it. Say, I want you to play the part of someone who says AI should be invited to every classroom and you should lose it all the time. You take the opposing view. See who wins. I think AI is going to beat you, I got to say. Prompt resistance. So pick a debate. Topics is another one. I actually put Gemini against itself. So I had to do the affirmative and the opposition in a formal statement of purpose. You'll present arguments supporting the use of AI in higher education. And the second speaker, Gemini, also will present arguments opposing. And it went back and forth for 3 hours. And then the guidelines are address the specific points raised during the debate, respect and courtesy, no new arguments during rebuttals, and then well-structured arguments, formulate thoughtful, blah, blah, blah. You get it. And then it went off and it had a conversation and debate. Okay. Historical way, historical role playing. Ask it to play Martin Luther King with historical accuracy. I'll ask you about the perspective on artificial intelligence and how educators can prepare students to upskill and reskill to prepare for dramatic job changes and loss of the middle class, fake news, and a worsening race relations in the United States. Write a speech in Martin Luther King's voice to inspire educators to action. Here's the speech. I'll let you read it later, but it brought me to tears as I thought about he would have believed, and I think this is true. Community colleges have for so long been engines of progress and pathways to the middle class. The human spirit is reborn through education. Let us not only upskill, but uplift, empowering every student to find their place in this shifting world. Educators, elevated. We shall rise as architects of a bright future, shaping minds ready not just for survival, but for leadership and the betterment of our world. The hero's journey calls. That's you, educators. It's time to rise, to be of service, to follow. Join me and let us stride together towards that promised land. I could not have said it better myself. So that's my promise. And then taking those words exactly, I fed it into Copilot. This is the image it generated. An America I want to live in. That I don't, sadly. Everybody sharing, the rich and the poor, every gender, every ethnicity, the true melting pot of American civilization, all sharing the dinner table and having discourse together, politely, respectfully enjoying the promised land. That's what it looks like to me. So the other one that's really good, and this always works on pretty much anything complicated, right? Explain to me like I'm a 10-year-old, but here's the twist, right? Always add using a metaphor. Add that to it because it's cool, right? So this actually happened. Leo Stouter's teaching his anatomy physiology class, and a long time ago, we did 95 3-minute videos. I actually filmed him explaining how, the kidneys work, etc., with little models. And we did it for a project together. And I remembered that. And I went to him and said, is there anything that students still can't quite understand? He says, yeah, the kidney and how it works and what it does, actually. All right. So I asked that question. What's the functionality of the kidney? And explain it to me like a 10-year-old and make it easy to understand. So the kidney's like a cleaning crew. Imagine your body has a big bustling city with lots of homes and schools and factories, just like a city. It's got waste coming out. And the kidneys are there to city's cleanup crew. They work 24/7, filtering out the waste from the blood, like picking up trash off the streets. So the city stays clean. And then it's got smart filters. This is your kidneys like 2 superhero filters. Picture a water filtration system that not only cleans the water, but decides how much of the good stuff, like water and minerals, needs to go back into the city's supply and how much waste needs to be flushed down the drain. The kidneys do just that with your blood, making sure that good stuff stays in and the serious stuff goes into the urine. Boom. And there's your picture. So if it wasn't clear before, now you understand how the kidney works. Now, we all probably kind of understood that already, so it's not a big deal. But you can do this about anything. String theory, please? Anybody? And then for creative, here's another prompt. And I did these before. There's the image. It's Hemingway's 5-word speech, or supposedly Hemingway. No one is able to prove that he wrote that. Here's a fun one. In fact, Josh, this is the one I was talking about earlier. What would these historical figures have to say about artificial intelligence and its effects on humans? So ask everybody from Plato to Marx to, Descartes to Spinoza, about this. And then ask them a second question just for fun, and do this with your students, right? What would they say about the chicken crossing the road? You can imagine what Kierkegaard said, or Machiavelli. Yeah, Nietzsche. Anyway, that's fun. So chain prompts. So I had this conversation with my roommate, and they were talking about like people that speak in different kind of ways than others. So I asked it to because I know famously William Shakespeare invented, I don't know, about 300 or 400 different phrases and words that weren't part of the English language. So I thought, well, why did he do it? Well, because there wasn't enough words to describe the things he was trying to describe. So he invented them, right? Well, African Americans in America do the same thing. And rappers use language that we don't. Think about even the language of texting. Did you have to look up LOL and all the rest of the things, So then second question. So once I asked for it to make 10 words and 10 phrases for these two groups of people, then I said, do artists create language where words fail? Why are rappers disrespected, but Shakespeare is revered? Ebonics, Pidgin English? How could they possibly call it that? And there's answers, right? Now, this is a prompt that I wasn't able to get anybody to generate. It was basically a Black rapper on stage with William Shakespeare, and every large language model, probably correctly so. So I had to make this up in Midjourney with 2 separate images, but you get the idea. And then just for fun, and then I went much deeper, and I understand that one of the reasons why people create language, because the oppressive class, they have to have a language they only know and understand, so they could talk to each other without being overheard. It was a protection for themselves. It was to be collectively different. And every language, and so I started going into linguistic history and finding out, why there were 700 languages in France and how it became one because the king came along and united the country. And the Tower of Babel, I had a conversation about that. Why would a god want to separate you into different languages that you don't know what each other's saying? Yeah, so that's what a chain prompt is. So Nietzsche and social media. So this is the conversation Josh and I are going to have, and I'm going to stop here and start asking questions and stuff like that and see what you guys have to say about this. But this is the things it came up with, and I'll kind of leave it up on screen maybe for a little bit for you to take a look at it. Dogma in the Digital Age, Propaganda for the People. So it made Nietzsche's social media commentary about politics and propaganda into a social media thing, including those hashtags were created by ChatGPT for me. In fact, it created the hashtag, "The future is ours to create," Friedrich Nietzsche, but way more chill is how it ended that conversation. So that's kind of cool. And then just so you know, we've gone through the 4 industrial revolutions, et cetera, and now we're into the 5th one. And these are the kinds of things you can expect. This is again from ChatGPT's reflections on my words. In fact, almost always I save my prompts so that someone knows what I asked, and then you really understand what I got. I recommend that for all your students if you're going to have them use it, that they copy and paste into a Word document all their prompts that they ask and they get received. And there's the illustration that talks about those ages and changes in time. All right, so I'm gonna step out of this, stop sharing, open the conversation. Does anybody wants to come online with me and say, hey? Did I lose
Hey,
you?
Rick. Hey,
Yeah.
Rick. There's an interesting thing. I don't know if you remember, there used to be a movie called Future Shock. Did you ever see that movie?
Yep.
All right. So the concept was, and correct me if I'm wrong, that computers will come along and computers will do all the work that humans were busy doing, and now you have extra time to enjoy life. And they showed these things. People were having parties and enjoying everything, and the computer were doing all the work. Right?
Yep.
Now
Star Trek.
that
Anyway,
yeah
just saying.
that never materialized. Right? Now my fear with this movement right now is that it's going to be exactly the same thing.
Yes.
And the problem is, if we don't grab it and like somebody posted something interesting, I think it was in your page, one of your AI pages, which was, we want the computers to do the work and left the time for people to do the creative portion of art and music and all the other things.
So Angel, you're preaching to the choir. That is exactly my thesis. But here's the trick. In fact, if you really want to have this conversation real serious, you got to go watch Jon Stewart. His last episode is about AI. He nails the counter argument. He's the devil's advocate from what I just told you. And that is that corporations have been doing this to do exactly this, to take all the control, take all the money. That's why we have no middle class today. And my question is, who's going to do something about it? We saw how this has always been the way. Detroit should be a wake-up call to everybody who ever thought that they had a job for the rest of their lives and then found out that somebody else overseas is doing it cheaper. So I think we need to switch it so we have corporations have a responsibility to their employers and to the planet, and need to keep books that say everything they took out of the land, they have to put back and add plus. And they have to say, if they fired someone because of AI, they got to pay them for the rest of their life. I think the corporations, the Native Americans had the idea you were born with responsibilities. I believe that's true. I think we're upside down, because if you look at the 14th Amendment, the one that freed the slaves, it installed human rights for corporations. They are people. And if you look,
that's crazy.
You look at Citizens United on top of that, it said speech, the #1 amendment to the Constitution, is equivalent to money. So now a corporation can take all their money. You and I can only donate so much to a political campaign. Super PACs, these big corporations, can get billions of dollars in there and then hand it to Donald Trump or whoever, and they can get elected. So who do you think they're going to listen to, the super PACs or you and me? So the promise of America is that we're equal and that we have responsibilities to each other and to our country. In fact, ask not what your country will do for you, but what you can do for your country. And, so I have political science. I watch Future Shock, and in a political science class, that was the main movie. And the whole class was about that movie. And what's it going to be like? I'm here to say, I'm going to stand up and fight for this version of it, where corporations have responsibilities, and so does the government, to serve the public, and they're misaligned. Tuli, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Thanks. No, I figured this is a great platform for me to express my concern. So my biggest concern is we want our students to be critical thinkers.
Yep.
We want them to be problem solvers.
Yep.
So if we allow AI to do all that critical thinking for them, and they go.
So what I'm saying is that you're designing a hard and fast lined rule, right? You're giving the keys to your car, but you've told them what they're not allowed to do. So if they do it, you call them out and you drop them out of your class, you fail them immediately.
No, what I'm trying to say is that we want them to go out into business and that, with the knowledge that they have gained in their own thought process, think of the problems that they have to solve in business.
Yep.
And if we teach them to depend so much on AI, then how is business going to become? I mean, a person that's going to always go to ChatGPT and how do I solve this problem? That's my biggest concern. I want to.
Let me replace one word in your statement. Replace AI with the internet. Now make that same argument to me.
To me, it's the same thing. I have students,
But are you going to stop them from using the internet?
No, absolutely not. And then you can use it, of course, to learn, watch a video and learn, right? So we do that all the time. Actually, we ourselves either make videos or allow them to watch videos.
Yeah.
But this AI per se is it just makes the thinking process sort of not your own. So
that's where responsibility ethics come in. I think that's my big clarion call, is that we need, as educators, need to take the social, I got to watch my words here. We have to take the social responsibility to be the grown-ups in the room for everybody, right? So if their parents didn't raise them to be ethical people and they go off and they do, so a car is a great vehicle to express this, right? If you give them the car and they get it and go drive drunk, that's on them,
right.
And then they suffer the consequences. And if they don't learn that over time, then, then we got a problem.
So let me give you an example of a problem, right? For us to think through.
That this is amplified and it's happening so much faster and it's so much more powerful. In fact, the only really sentient one that scares me is Leon Kuhn. There's the Peace Institute. And they said, this is the first tool that could end the world by deciding to. A nuclear bomb can't on its own autonomously do that. That's the only statement that's ever scared me.
Right. So
creative, there's other things to be afraid of too. Yeah. So yes, please.
So we want students to go and be managers, directors, VPs, and reach the highest goals possible. And those people, they use their experience, their working either from the bottom up, or they use their knowledge base that they've gathered in industry to make decisions about how to do something for a business.
Right.
Versus going to ChatGPT's, how do I solve this? This is my problem. And does ChatGPT have all of the experiences? So unless ChatGPT can say, all of this has happened in all these businesses and they have made this decision and this has been the outcome, then how do you make good decisions for corporations?
Well, because
if you're not taught to think for yourself.
Well, so what we have to do is instill the ethics in them so they're good business people. They go out and do the right thing. I think we've got a problem here because we've already gone down the slippery slope of giving corporations privileges to give our politicians the right to abuse us. We have given away our privacy to Google and Facebook in exchange for free email access to other people on the other side of the planet. Has that empowered us? Yes. If you're an artist, you put your artwork out there so you could be seen around the world. So your TikTok video makes you into a millionaire because that's the kind of promise, the little light at the end of the tunnel, right? So we've sacrificed a lot of our humanity in exchange for the potential of fame, and we've already been bought. So we don't have to watch a commercial until recently on websites. They basically wanted your eyeballs. And so here's a really good example. Facebook found out, and they actually did social engineering experiments on us as human beings, and I was a part of one of them. They basically found out if they outrage you, they engage you, you spend twice the amount of time. The average person spends 4 hours on Facebook. If you flood them with bad information, like if you put guns in front of me, if you put Trump supporters in front of me, I'm going to be on there 8 hours. And I'm going to be angry and pissed off when I get off. And I'm not going to be nice to my children, right? So they did that on purpose, knowing that's what it did. And then Mark Zuckerberg had to get up in front of the parents of children who killed themselves because they were in suicidal ideations at a time, and Facebook fed them rope to hang themselves and knives and different information that it shouldn't have. And they ignored over 6,000 emails that were sent to the upper management. So he sat there in front of Congress, and I sat there and watched the live hearings as he faced those parents of those dead children. And I said, oh my God. And he's immune from prosecution.
Yeah, but it has happened in the whole history. Law and justice is always behind the history, and it's not going to be different. It's not going to be different. I definitely, I'm in the business. I'm in the logistics business. Even besides I teach part-time, I'm telling you, we are using AI every single day. Believe me, they want us even to save time how we write a speech and how we write an English and very good English email. I'm telling you, I have to do it because I can save time to make the business profitable.
Yeah,
and it has happened before. Believe me, from engineering perspective, for those that they know math, I don't know if you had to use the logarithm tables. I mean, complete books to find in a table. And then the magic calculator. I mean, the calculation ruler that some of us we had to use in the past. And then the calculator that it cost a fortune and my parents couldn't afford it. But then I was able to afford it. And then it was that. I gotta tell you, CAD, the software for architects. Yeah. I remember people saying there will not be more architects because now they're gonna be replaced by CAD. Today we have more architects. Today, I mean that is happening. It's not what we need to do. It is just set up rules. What we, exactly what we've been talking here. But and I'm telling you, corporations, they go for EBIT, they go for making money. I work for one of those. I'm telling you, and that is not a stop. They are just guiding us how to use it properly. And to do what? To be more efficient.
Let me stop you for a second. Do you work for DHL by chance?
What do you think? Yes.
Well, the reason why I ask is because I'm going to put this recording.
My planes are here in the back.
Yeah. I'm going to put this on YouTube. If you like, I can edit this out. Or if you just feel this is your truth.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. I just wanted to say
they love publicity. I mean, this is not a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's it, right? So one of the things about educators is that we are there for the best reasons. I think there's 3 groups of people that should be leading this, not the politicians that don't even understand it, not the corporations who just want to make money off of it, but educators. You know what you do. Remember I asked you to remember that one moment that one educator did that one thing for you that changed your life? I know that all of you know that moment, or 10 of them, probably. The fact that your educators tells me you've had 10 of them, right? And then right now, you're not doing it for the money, right? You've got your job at DHL because this one doesn't pay you enough, but you cannot stop doing this one, can you? Artists are the same way, and artists get screwed out of this too. And you saw what Napster happened. Now, Napster, in fact, I have a study going right now where I'm trying to figure out, are artists making the same amount of money per person that they used to make before Napster? And is that a dividing point? So I have a student actually make an infographic, and I'm going to present that next week when he finishes it. Because I'm really interested in that. So artists is going to be my 2 episodes away. And I've made my livelihood off of my photography and my books and my artworks and my displays and everything, right? And it scares the heck out of me because it's a better underwater photographer than I I prompted with 2 sentences a better underwater picture of a turtle, a Ridley turtle, anatomically correct, that rivals any photograph I've taken, and I've done over at least 300 dives with Ridley turtles, never got anything close to this. So yeah, what are we worth as human beings if we can be replaced by AI? I mean, this is a scary damn conversation, but I'd rather have it with you guys in a safe space, you that care about human beings and had enough courage to come here tonight and spend your off time to talk about this. I think we're the smart people in the room. We're the adults in the room that, should be taking the responsibility. We got to figure out what that is. How do we do that, right? Tuli, yeah.
All right. I'm not dropping this. So
No,
I'm not talking
that's why
about
I'm here.
efficacy.
That's
I'm
why
not
I'm
talking about using the tool for efficacy or efficiency, right? Clearly,
Well,
that's
okay.
important. So that's important. Efficacy, efficiency make my quantitative analysis faster. What I am talking about is leaders, future leaders, not today, so
Right.
dependent on data that how do we know garbage in, garbage out? So
Well,
how
I
do we
mean,
know that the
you gotta
data
know in
is,
supply chain management, AI is like the thing.
it is, it's
Yeah.
huge, it's everywhere, absolutely,
Yeah,
no,
you
bar
can't-
none.
And
Especially
could
for
you take it
sup-
out if you wanted to?
no, because analytics are, it helps with analytics. I
Yeah.
am talking about the leaders of the company. How do you take,
How do you take any human being
your
and make them-
mindset?
how do you make them ethical? You put them in Josh's class and you teach them about philosophy, right? Josh is nodding his head. Oh, I got that responsibility. Is that my job? Really? I got
No, I'm talking about good decision making.
Well, that's it too. That's an
right,
ethics
good
class.
decision making.
You know?
So many people, I'll give you an example in my doctorate. So many people outsource to China, right? By making incorrect decisions because there were too many parameters to look at, and our mind can only make decisions on, on certain amount of. Why do you think CBS lower the amount of products? Because when too many options are put in front of us, we don't make decisions. What I am talking about is deep inside the leaders of some corporations that have made decisions that have put this country or corporations forward because of their knowledge base, right? Their experience. How do you get that from AI?
You don't. You educate them to be ethical human beings. You educate the human. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying some humans are lost. They're going to be cheaters all their life. That's just what they do, right? There's going to be people that kill and maim and do whatever. But if we sit down as educators and we don't do anything, we're responsible for the end of civilization. That's it. So that's why I'm standing up so loud and so vehemently and so passionately. I'll go anywhere to talk to anybody. I literally have done 30 different speeches in the last 2 months. And I'll continue to do to my dying breath. This is my purpose on this earth, is to talk about how we need to grow up as humans, take responsibilities, and so all the corporations need to do. We need to protest and vote these idiots out of office that are bought and sold, that are supposed to be Americans, and they just aren't. We've got to stop. We've got to disavow that, I'm going to say it, that Donald Trump is a human being that we should even be thinking about for this purpose. It's an idiocy, and it's an insult to every good human being on this planet to even imagine. I won't have a conversation. I just can't with someone who believes that he is a worthwhile candidate, because he's sold using the same Joseph Goebbels technique. This is an actual thing I did. So I found this post of what the techniques, there were 13 steps of Joseph Goebbels' way to dominate and start the Nazi party. This is how he did it. I took the 13, I gave it to ChatGPT. I said, show me in the campaign for presidency where Donald Trump used these techniques and cite individual instances, times, and words he said. It had 5 examples for all 13. And I could have kept going all night long. So, unless somebody like me asks that question and then I get activated, we're sitting in the war room. We're the resistance. We're the resistance against the futility of people that aren't human, that don't care about each other, that just don't think it's our responsibility. If you're an educator, you've known since your birth that your purpose on this planet is to make a better world for your students. That's all you do. So if you sit back and you think, oh, well, nothing I can do about it, well, then go do something else.
Right.
Where you can do some good. Yeah, maybe you go into those corporations and then you go in there and say, look, you're going to lay off all these people. No, you know what you can do? You can triple the profits of our corporation by making each one of those people, giving them an upskill, and now they're going to make you more money because they got more power to do more things. They're going to use the tools, and that's what happens to all of us. So you got to figure out how we individually can upskill ourselves. So I'm upskilling myself using AI. I'm a better teacher now with AI than without. And
Right.
because I'm a lifelong curious person, I've learned more stuff in the last 6 months than I have in my entire life up to this point.
Right. Definitely, we constantly mention one key word talking about AI, which is validate, validate, validate. From a corporate America, from the industry, they are doing that. I mean, yes, AI expedites our functions, but also we validate. Remember, at the end, a private company exists because it's pursuing to make money, is to be profitable. And
Right.
they're not going to risk their profitability because
Yes.
the data is not trustable. I'm talking about from the data analytics. They have security ways to handle that. I mean, I'm going to give you an example. I mean, one little shipment, one little box that you receive in Amazon from any country, one shipment in millions, it has at least 20 checkpoints with data that is being sent immediately to validate with cameras, with any kind of information, validating that is true what is doing it. Of course, the predictions that we're going to do based on that data are based on real history.
Yes.
And of course, if you tell me that you are shipping an iPhone, right? And that iPhone weighs 30 pounds, there is a contradiction in the logic. Then it triggers things. The systems, the company, the governments, the nations, they can validate. I mean, we are seeing in Europe in terms of regulation, they are regulating AI, and of course, it needs to be regulated. I don't know if you watched news today, yesterday, I was listening to radio about the incognito issue with Google. The bunch of suits, the whole things, all the information that they were saying that they were not using and now they are using. Okay, yes, law and justice is coming behind the history, but now at least someone is acting. We will react. We will react because we're not gonna let just kill us easily because it's an instinct, right, to survive. We will do it. I mean, probably we will not be here, all of us. Right.
The scariest part about it, William, is again, it's what you do when you get in your car. Do you go into work in it or do you go drive drunk? So you're not going to change that about human beings because we're all made that way, right? That's a primary thing. So bias that's in AI, the hallucination, can be engineered out. The example that you gave of a package weighing 30 pounds, that's not right because the historical data makes sure it's not. So there's many ways that you can eliminate both bias, and you have to define what bias is. That's a big, long conversation, which I've had with AI. And then you get to this other question, which is basically, it's going so fast. Corporations know what's going on, but the employees don't got a clue. So at a community college where we have to build up the middle class, because that's what made America great. 1950, people came back with the GI Bill. That's what truly made America great, is because the middle class was big as it's ever been. Now it's an empty shell of nothing, and you've got kids that are 20s and 30s not having kids, not buying a house, because the average income necessary to have a house and 2 cars in the garage is $120,000 in Fort Lauderdale. 3 years ago, it was 75. That's how fast it's happening. So you're having to work 3 jobs. So all of our students, ask any of them if they think that a white picket fence and a baby and 2 cars in the garage is going to happen for them in their lifetime. We got a negative population growth because there's no middle class. And then if you see that the 1% owns more money than 99% of the rest of us, it's misaligned. So the misalignment, this Koyaanisqatsi, there's a movie about Indians' belief that you're out of balance with life. we're at a terribly out of balance with life place. Even in education, if we're teaching to the test, that's rote education. That's wrong. That never has been right. You don't teach to memorize, you teach to adapt and to innovate. That's our evolutionary process, right? And now we got tools that can get us to Mars, you know? So what do you do with it, though? And then you got the smart people that are having these conversations like you all here are doing. And are you listening? Or you just like, you know, there's so much noise. How does a student even filter out what they're going to pay attention to? And if you can spend all day and night doing a video game and then getting on Netflix and chilling and having a good time, are you going to do that? Or are you going to study your philosophy books and you're going to read them? Please. So we've got to align ourselves too, because we're old farts and we got young kids and their world is different. They use the shortcut conversations that I don't even understand. And I keep up with things, and my kids, I was the same way too, right? And the one reason why I haven't retired, because I turned 65 this year, and I'm not going to retire till I die, because I got shit to do. And this is it, is this, you know, wake up everybody and say, look, if you don't take responsibility, then nobody will. You know, talk to the Nazi Germans. You know, nobody stood up. So if we don't stand up, that's the existential crisis that we're at. It's really that serious. Because the Industrial Revolution took 3 generations of human beings before it was fully complete. When Motorola came out with their phone, it took 3 years because there was no infrastructure to use a cell phone. So it took them 3 years to build it. And the internet age and your phone in your pocket took about 15 years. This is 1 year and 1 month. And we're already way past all that times 10. As far as these questions that we're asking, it's an existential threat to everything that we know. And we either learn, adapt, and innovate, or we give up. I don't know what we do. I really don't. You know, could they replace me with an AI tomorrow? Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind. But I got LinkedIn Learning and I said, oh, this is interesting because now I can outsource to another organization. It costs nothing really to speak of. And now I'll teach that stupid Photoshop lesson again and again. And they have someone that's prepared to offer that. But then I can concentrate on the human. And I had that conversation that I had with Natalie. That was life-changing to me. I mean, we were both in tears. I said, that's the most beautiful thing you just gave me, the gift of imagining that if I design an experience for my students, and that's what we do in life. In fact, here's the assignment I give to my students in UX UI class. I say, go home, find somebody that you love, and I want you to write down ways you can make life more beautiful for them, and then go do that. And then you get it. Now find a problem that exists in the world and go out and solve it. Not only are you going to fix a problem, you're going to have given up your lifetime and effort for a noble cause and fix something, and then you can change the world. Steve Jobs changed the world. You know, that phone in my pocket, I wouldn't give it up for anything. If I lost it, I'd be desperate. I dropped my phone in the shower. Don't ask me why I had a shower phone, but in China, and it broke. And thank God, and I had everything, my passport, my visa, everything's on there, like literally everything. And I went downstairs and the place that fixes it did it in 10 minutes. And I walked out for $20. You know, but I was in a panic. I mean, like I never have been in before in my life. I'm teaching in Shanghai, China for 3 months and I got this going on. Anyway, but that's kind of the point. Is like, you know, maybe I'm good at adapting. Yeah. Angel, yes.
So I don't know if you saw, there is the school that they already replaced all the teachers with AI.
Yes.
So I mean, it's not.
Read the full article, Angel, because I'm going to tell you one thing that I really found interesting. They do it for 3 hours in the morning, and then the rest of the day they play and do creative activities. It's sort of a Montessori method.
Yeah.
So I compared that to other Montessori methods and different methodologies of teaching where you, so Montessori basically is self-driving education. So the student through their curiosity kind of gets to that place. That's what I'm actually suggesting here.
Well, the other thing is, I don't know if you remember, there was a long time ago, I mean, probably over 10 years ago, somebody did an interesting experiment where they put computers in the middle of a jungle where nobody knew how to use computers. And the kids taught themselves how to use computer, and then they taught other kids how to use computer and were able to communicate. So to a certain degree, I think that's your concept of using AI.
Yes.
To Tully's concern, you're talking about leadership, which, by the way, usually they don't make any freaking decision. They're just placeholders. Most of those people, I mean, if you look at Elon Musk, they try to keep him away from the places where they make decisions because
He's going to say something crazy and the stock's
yeah,
going to
yeah. So
He's a liability.
yes, in many cases, the people who are supposed to be in charge are not the people who are doing the decisions or anything else. They just get paid to be a representative of the institution, and they may have their place for other negotiations and things like that. But they're not the ones tinkering. The tinkering levels at the bottom, those are the people, our students, when they become an intern somewhere, those are the ones doing the work. And those are the ones we expect to have the skills to be able to do it.
Yeah,
and I tell you what,
and I'd like to
ahead.
add that if you're worried about Joe Biden being very old, that's the same thing. He's just the head of the stick. It's the people under him that he picked that are smart, that follow his ideology, that are getting shit done. So we got the lowest employment, but we can't build the middle class. I mean, so we got other issues, but that's on us too.
And going back to the student responsibility, I created a poster and I share it with my students. I think I share it with you, or I put it on the D2L class anyways. But the point is, we want to make students accountable. If you say you can do A, B, C, D, and if you do A, B, C, D, you're good. If you do D and it wasn't on the list, now we have a problem. And one thing I do with my students is I give tests in a computer room so I can see when they're answering. I said, look, I can see your computers. I can see what you're doing. If you search in the wrong place, I'm going to close your computer. And some think it's a joke. And then I close the computer and they panic. And I say, well, you treaded the waters, and those are the consequences of your behavior. And so as long as they understand the rules and we give them basic rules. Now, like Abraham said, yes, somebody's going to always cheat. Somebody's going to try, but that's kind of normal distribution in society. You have a lot of people who are very good. You have a lot of people who
that's why you got a bell curve.
People who are a few people who are like very good, a few people who are like evil, and the majority is somewhere in the middle, and they do what is right. And I think that's what we should expect and guide them in that direction, so they can be productive members of society. And the other thing is, if we teach them how to use this tool, not only do well in our courses, they will learn how to learn. And that's something else we need to build in students, is learn when, like we're doing right now. I mean, we're training ourselves to learn how to use this technology, because if we don't, it's going to move over and then we'll be left behind.
And luckily, all of our lives, we've been adapters to new knowledge, stuff. And so we've always been agents of change in the way that we think, right? There was a sort of interesting thing about Einstein, zero principle thinking. So basically, he took out everything he knew, threw it away for a minute, and then just imagined with no thoughts in his head. And then he came up with E equals MC squared, basically. So there's that zero thinking that we have to throw everything away. We can't trust necessarily intuition, because we're in a new world with no gravity. Mentally, we're kind of this floating space. So I want to anchor any thoughts I have. For me, the car key metaphor, like these different metaphors I'm using, are a photograph I can look at and say, that I know is true. Then I can scaffold on top of that. And then hopefully and I'd love, by the way, thank you all so much. I need a devil's advocate to fight me hard. Truly, definitely. Thank you for that conversation. I embrace that, because the same way that, Abraham Lincoln put together a cabinet of opposition through the Socratic method of having a strong force equaling yours, you get a stronger idea of what the truth is somewhere between. And these are all absolutely valid conversations. And that's why I wanted to have the show, because I just wanted a clubhouse I can hang out with cool kids like you and talk about, shit like this. And And, most of you drank enough of the Kool-Aid, you at least believe in the idea of it. And some of you are optimists and some of you are pessimists because you've had different life experiences than I have. I am an eternal optimist because, man, my life has been blessed. And I feel like, I got fired from the Miami Herald because I filed a discrimination suit against them. I got divorced after 27 years because my wife didn't want to live with me once the kids were out of the house. I wanted to kill myself at that point. I've had some real serious shit that, I could fill a book with, but the bottom line is, out of all that, what do I know? That believing in that there's something I can do about it is the strongest conviction I have. And man, there's no stopping me. And a man with conviction, a person with a conviction, no, there's no stopping it. But it's got to be a lot of us. This is a big giant world and we're just a tiny little fleck on the, So Josh, would you mind having the conversation with me about your philosophy idea?
Sure. Yeah, I think one other thing that just kind of is in my mind, it was something that I thought about early on before even getting into the institute and all the rest that I'll throw out there is that I think one of the things that motivates me to want to be part of this conversation is that I know that the students in my class are looking at 5 years down the road and 10 years down the road differently than I did when I was in their seat.
Yes.
I imagined the world would be pretty much the same, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. I didn't see it being all that much different. I'd have to navigate, I'd have to do things, I'd have to build, I'd have to, deal with the world, but I didn't expect it would be different. I think that, they know that it's changing fast, and they're trying to figure that out and handle that. And this is a big part of what I think will be impacting what they face, over the next 5-10 years. And so part of me is like, I'm trying to be sensitive to that fact too, that the students, I don't have to worry about it as much, is that like, it'll shape my future, in some ways, but I know for them, they know that it's like going to shape.
I've got my retirement money. I got my house. I own it all out. I pay my credit cards every month, so I'm good. I literally could retire tomorrow. But for them, oh my God, it's scary as hell. For my kids that are in their 20s and 30s, damn, I don't know. I sent a letter to my sister and I said, may you live in interesting times for her birthday. She said, do you realize that's an insult, a Chinese insult? You shouldn't say that to me. She's a smart woman. She's got 2 doctorate degrees and 4 master's degrees. And she retired from University of Florida. She was teaching business people. So she taught business writing and presentation, University of Florida for 27 years or whatever. And so there was a big flood of people from China coming in. So they would go to, they'd send a proctor to China to give this test to get in. So they had to prove they knew English and a bunch of other stuff. They would hire people and they wouldn't check their IDs. And so people would get here and literally could not even talk or write an email. And that's what she was teaching, how to do effective business communications. And it's like, so they had to go send UF people to China to watch, verify fingerprint them and everything, just to give them a test. So they got people here and so then she had to write a book about, well, how do you translate the thought process from Chinese to English? And, anyway. So this is, we didn't expect the pandemic. And, the students, according to the Wall Street Journal, lost 1 entire year of knowledge. And how well did we do? I think if you were the fly on the wall inside those Zoom calls, man, I'm a visual person. So I put together a really great show for all the students, so, that was okay for me. And then I learned how to use OneDrive. So D2L is a piece of junk. OneDrive is awesome. In fact, here's what I'm asking. I'm actually asking Microsoft, and I'm in conversations with someone from Microsoft to get this right? Copilot Tutor. What is it? It's a version of Copilot that never gives you the answer, like Khan Amiga. It only gives you the next steps you need to take to get to your answer. Now imagine, as a birthright to all human beings on the planet, Microsoft gave that gift. That's social responsibility. That will give them a Nobel Peace Prize. And then while they're at it, make Copilot EDU for the educators. and it's the assistant to amplify you. And then put OneDrive up there, make it really cheap for all educational institutions. And so you want to pay back the billions of dollars? You want to make Khan Academy available for every single human being on the planet as a birthright? That's what you got to do, and that's all you need to do.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
game's over. So some little kid that speaks Mandarin, can be in a rice field and he's got a phone because they have a phone, right? They do everything on that phone, has one app, does that, and they can become the CEO of a company in the United States. Or change the way China does stuff and overthrow the government and, do Tiananmen Square, but do it right this time,
And again, it's coming back to guiding, controlling, and the result can be positive. Absolutely. I'm telling you, just an experience today, reading a draft form of a student. The mission was simple. You write 150, 200 words and explain the draft of your business case, and you get to select a product, how you're going to do the whole logistics. They pick up crude oil. And I asked them, get a picture of your product. They got some barrels in a pallet. And the minute they use the word barrel, they say, wait a minute, something is wrong. I mean, yes, they use AI. Fine, great, they got it. And I asked them, you price crude oil by barrels. That's what you do in Wall Street and all that. That's what you do. You price it and you trade it, but you do not pack it in barrels. End of story. That's it. I mean, you better do your paper or you have zero. You got to do a better research. Again, all this technology requires to do all those checkings to
critical thinking. I mean, that's number
critical
one
thinking.
right there. Yeah.
Yes. And for now, we still have a lot of work to do, which
We
is
do. Yeah, that's
right?
the other thing, is that we've got to raise a bunch of kids that basically has had way too much time. They've been mediated crazy. I remember it was called the boob tube. Do you remember the idea of TV set was called boob tube? This is on steroids. This is Dolly Parton size, this thing going on now. You have no reason to have to do anything. I'm not sure that any of my students have ever done any labor for to get allowance. Every Saturday, I was 3 hours every morning cleaning up the house, doing the laundry, whatever it had to be done, So, I'm not that old man that thinks that there aren't, and there's amazing students. And so you got to do whatever you can. And and I'm just glad that there's people like you all out there that are willing to do it, because it's the hard work. And it's happening so fast. I mean, I don't even know. But anyway, getting back to Josh's idea. So we started to come up with a prompt, which is what I want the AI Institute group to do. And that is to make prompts that really have a sense of genius and creativity, like that bowl of tape. So Josh and I got started, and we talked about one of the problems of teaching art history and teaching philosophy is these are dead old people. It's not relevant to me. So basically the idea is to come up with a relative prompt. So Josh, let me let you take over and describe what you envision.
Sure. So I know I still have a long way to go to sort of get to maybe being great at prompting, but I have learned how to have some fun with it and to try to make some connections. And so if I am sort of starting at the end of the conversation, or at least the end of a piece of it, I'd say I ended up with a picture of Immanuel Kant playing soccer. And, so this is something that you wouldn't necessarily expect, but I ended up pursuing a path that led to this. One of the first things that I asked just in this thread of conversation was, I said, what would Plato likely say about the pervasive use of social media? And so trying to think, if I have students who, for example, when we talk about the cave, they'll mention that the cave reminds them of social media use. And so if they could then take a prompt like this and then go ask, then they could get some additional information, right, from a source that understands a lot about Plato. So they could ask this in class, they could raise it in class, we could talk about it there, but this is something they could do if they were curious and want to go down that path. They could go and ask this question. And it came back with all kinds of really interesting stuff about what Plato would say. It brought up Plato's cave, talked about Plato's idea about regulation and censorship, and really it's censorship around things that aren't driven by reason. So his concern is that people will just dive into sort of addictive, entertaining stuff and not be influenced by things that are governed by reason to help shape their practices. So it mentioned that. And so then I asked, because it mentioned rational principles.
Hey, Josh, let me back up just a little bit and just kind of get the framework for this. So the idea is you got dead old guys that had these ideas, and Josh is trying to teach them. Well, so how do I make that relevant to my life? Okay, so Plato's caves, yeah. So you got some people staring at a wall, all they see is patterns, they're tied down, and then someone goes out and sees the real world and says, hey guys, you got to come out and see this shit, right? That's basically, sorry to kind of paraphrase it as nasty as that, but so the idea is, how does it relate to my life? So if you look at the cave is exactly that. So you've got all these kids that are in their video games and they're staring at a wall and they think that's the whole world and the whole purpose for being in life. And then someone stands up and goes outside and then finds out how to scuba dive and falls in love with whale sharks and studies the rest. And he goes back in, tries to explain that to them, and they're in this 3D virtual world. So all of a sudden, old guys that are dead are relevant to you today. So the prompt idea is for in each of your different disciplines to come up with that magic thing that's like the bowl of tape, which creates autonomous learning. So makes it relevant to my life. Why do I care about Kant or Nietzsche or whoever, right? So tell the student to find out something about their life they're worried about, they want to understand, they can't quite figure out what, the social media thing is bugging me, and then people are making me feel bad about my image, and what do I do? Broke up with my girlfriend because whatever. And then ask ChatGPT, tell me which one of these 10 different philosophers has something to say about this. And then you have a conversation, and then he says, it's, your gamer friends, or you're out playing soccer and having a good time. It's like Plato's cave. So all of a sudden you got a metaphor for something relevant to your life that you care about, and you own your curiosity to go find the other answers that you never even thought of asking. Boom. So this is what I call a landmine prompt. It plants just the seed. In fact, what my suggestion to Josh was give them an actual prompt and write the frame and said, just put your name in there and your experience in there, and then ask that. That's your first question. And then you're going to give them a sheet of paper at the midpoint. You're going to say, okay, so how does that explain, how does the way the Plato's cave explain what Plato was talking about, and what was he talking about? Why is that an important thought for me to think about? And so then it would explain Plato, and then you got the context of understanding, oh, it's like my gamer boys and I'm out playing soccer and they don't get why I'm right. And then you get to the next level. So now you understand Plato, and then you get excited because I wonder what else they got to say, and then what do they say about my girlfriend that's flirting with all these other guys? Who's got something to say about that? I don't know. Nietzsche, maybe? I'm not quite. So the idea is that if every one of us educators in our own way. So Anhil, I actually sent you a link to the perplexity conversation. I had a student that was talking about the immortal jellyfish and the flatworm. So I saw Lex Fridman had this guy on that, this flatworm, I forget what it's called, but you can cut it up into 266 pieces and it regenerates itself.
Each part. Yeah, it's a flatworm. Yeah. So basically it has the capacity to regenerate because it's so simple. So what happened is we have cells, and that's where stem cells come from, basically. Right. So our stem cells, some stem cells have the capacity of producing every other cell.
Right.
Once differentiation occurred, for example, your finger, once it becomes a finger, that's the only thing it does. Your skin, that's the only thing it does. Yeah. But stem cells have the capacity to produce every other cell. So in the flatworm, all the cells are basically totipotential. In other words, they can produce all the other parts. So as long as you have a bio part of the flatworm, it can regenerate those parts. And by the way, it's not the only organism. So they're very simple. They're very simple. And the interesting thing is that the only vertebrate that can do that are lizards. So if we can do that, have you ever seen the
We'll live forever.
Yes.
No, the most measured man.
I know, but have you ever seen Deadpool?
Yes, that's it.
You know how he gets destroyed and parts grow back, which will be really cool because
so here's where this came from. Yeah, so I've been curious about this before because I heard about the immortal jellyfish. So a student in class came in and said he wants to do an infographic. So I said, hey, what about immortal animals? Which immortals have been like 100 million years, this animal? And of course, there's the whole brain thing and whatever. So it's not the same animal. So there's different types of longevity, but basically it lives forever because it regenerates all of its cells completely. So it's not the same animal it was 100,000 years ago, and then there's a shark that lives in cold temperatures, so its metabolism is slow, so it's 700-year-old shark. So he's doing an infographic now where he's finding.
Yeah, 6
Yeah, so he's using an infographic, so he's asking ChatGPT, what are the most outrageous facts about animals that live forever and why, right? And so now he's actually illustrating these ideas. And he himself is super excited about it. Did you know that there was a jellyfish that did this too? Did you know if you cut off a lizard's tail, it grows back? And then all of a sudden, now he's talking about the telomeres and why aren't humans? So I said, check into the guy, I forget his name. It's David Brown or something. He's the most measured man in history. So he made $100 million. He's spending $1 million measuring himself every single day. He's letting AI take over his health. What's the guy's name, Andrew?
Richard something. I know who you're talking about.
It's like Richard
I don't
Brown
know.
or whatever. Like
Yes,
if you look for the most measured man in history, that's him.
Correct. Yeah.
And he's and so he's trying to do that, right? And then I went down my own rabbit hole and I found out about telomeres, and if they didn't fray at the end, then you could regenerate them, and then stem cells. And so it's a rabbit hole of your own curiosity. And basically you plant one seed in Joshua's case or Anhil's case, and you can do it with anything. Supply chain management. You start a person on, and you just got to pull one thread that they like, how it feels, and then they self-driving car right off the lot, and you've got an active, engaged, because they got to figure out what their reason for being on this planet is. And all you got to do is give them a reason to care about this big bunch of knowledge that you've got. Yeah, Anhil?
Yeah, so what I do that with the presentations. Students, because that's one of the learning outcomes they're supposed to do. So I said, look, there's no list. Find something that you like to learn, that you're curious about. Yep. And then, like you say, they go down the rabbit hole, because then they start learning new things. And I said, well, you got to have some reference for these things. You just don't take somebody saying, you have to be critical about the information you get. You got to research it, and so it makes it kind of personalized the learning, like you said earlier.
Yeah,
because it's something they're interested to learn about and something they care or are passionate about.
Yeah, nobody's going to care about old dead people. I don't want to know math, but if you give me a personal finance class and you show me how I can take my money and be able to make it last and invest it in something, then all of a sudden I'm an investment club. And all of a sudden, a teacher says, hey, let's all put in $10 and we're going to do this for real. And we're going to invest in stuff. We're going to think about it. And all of a sudden you're 24/7 studying the stock market and you invest your money. And all of a sudden, so my ex-wife did this with her girlfriends. They made $65,000. They invested in, was it HP back in the day or whatever, when it went through the roof. And so they made 65 grand in 1 year each. So it's like, that's what you got to do. Figure out what that string is. And in every class, it's not going to be every student that really is aligned with that thing in your class. Maybe it's not philosophy, it's going to be the thing, but maybe it's in graphic design. So they get to go find where they're at. And that's what they're doing. They're exploring as college students. They're trying everything. I took political science only because I failed so bad. I had a 2.0 average. I was on academic suspension. And political science is the only degree that would allow me in with a 2.0 average. So I had journalism. I couldn't do that. So what did I do? Because I was working 70 hours a week photographing the space shuttle, for God's sakes. I ain't got time for that. But I happened to learn political science too, and I was kind of fascinated. So then I went off and did a photojournalist and won a Pulitzer. So, it worked out. But it's like, that's it. It's give them the sort of, and I when I talked to them, I said, so the photography class, couple of cool things happened that really are making me excited about teaching again. So I had one student, so I have to do a presentation about a famous photographer. I said, find someone whose work you're really interested in, like you love it. This one guy, he's in a wheelchair. He's quadriplegic. He has use of just his hands. So I actually went out and spent 3 hours building this contraption so he could have a camera on his wheelchair arm and then he had a reticulating screen so he could look at it and take a picture. He had better pictures than anybody else in the class. So then he goes and looks up this New York photographer, a fashion photographer who's in a wheelchair and has a team, and he's a very successful fashion photographer, calls him on the phone and does the interview with him, and then ends up spending the summer with him, photographing on the set with him. Then I had another student who was a they, I'm not sure what the proper pronoun was, they, and found these couple of women, people that were in Nazi Germany, and they dressed both as men as women and photographed, and found a story to tell. So it became a teachable moment in the class. I had another student wearing a complete hijab and was not allowed to take pictures of herself, and nor was she allowed to photograph other students. So in the lighting assignment for photographing other like a student with lighting change and stuff like that, I had her do a mannequin. Cool. Then when it came doing self-portraits, I had her photograph her environment in ways that expressed who she was. So she photographed like her wall with all her pictures and postcards and things on it. And like, oh, geez, you know, I mean, it took an hour or so conversation, but then I said, would you mind me talking about this? You know, do you want to talk about what your beliefs are and why you think that way? And, you know, because I'd had a long conversation with a Iranian student in my graduate class who did her whole thing about the hijab and the modesty and the respect for themselves, et cetera, et cetera. So we made it a teachable moment. So everybody understood where she was coming from. And all of a sudden, everybody in class was her friend. It was a safe place. And I was able to be that educator that was that extra. And oh my God, it just warms my soul when I even talk about it. Because it's like, that's why I teach, you know, because I got to educate everybody else about thinking the wheelchair kid is just on the side. He's a DJ and he's very successful and he's got his own thing, but he didn't have the confidence at first. And the woman in the hijab, all of a sudden, nobody wanted to go near her because she literally was covered her entire face except for her eyes. It's like, this was unusual. And I at first was a little bit taken aback. And then I knew, because I had been asked to go teach in Saudi Arabia photography. And I said, well, what can I allow them or not allow them to do? What do I got to think about? You know, so I had big conversations with a graphic design instructor because they wanted me to move there for a year and do this, and ended up not doing it because it, you know, this wasn't quite my thing, but a lot of money. But yeah, so, you know, you got to learn and adapt, and you got to have experiences, and you just got to live loud. And if you do it in front of your students, they get to see that possibility that maybe that's them. Maybe they see something in me and them, and then I can help them spot it. So we had conversations after everyone picked somebody. There was really deep conversations. Wow. I was kind of a little bit shocked. I mean, those are just 3 examples, but every single student had something to say just by choosing who they liked as a photographer. And then they got to tell the story. And now we've got cohort groups where they're studying together and they really care about each other. So, you know, that's my whole thing. Just add the humanness back to it. I know all of you do that, and I'm not even starting to suggest that I know all of you do it, because I've witnessed you in action. For most of you, I haven't done the same for you, William or Abishiba, but yeah. So, and that's all I want to do here. So Joshua's idea, which he's going to have to pull on the threads and figure out how it ties it up and how does he make it practically work. But I think it's one of those mind bombs. You just plant it and let it grow its own seed. So it's a bowl of tape, you know, and a bridge that gets built and knowledge gained. So I think that's all that any of us can do. Anybody else want to make any other comment? Or do you guys want to see the tools and stuff or anything? Or do you know about them all already?
I'm going to try the tools on my own.
Okay.
But I definitely, I'm going to reach out to you offline to
Yeah.
discuss something we can do at the library.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is great. I now have enough food for thought
Yeah.
to last me for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. The only ones that I think that are kind of worth thinking about. This one I haven't really gotten deep enough into it. I don't do that type of teaching, so but it definitely seems like a really good tool. I will say that I think it's worth the $10 for ChatGPT. It's not good at a bunch of stuff, but now that these the chat room GPTs are being made in number, and there's something for every single subject matter. In fact, there were a couple of ones on research and analysis that are pretty good. I think this is where I saw, is it Scholar AI? One of them, oh yeah, this is built upon 200 million, yeah, these two are built on research. If you're doing real research with Google Scholar, PubMed, JSTOR. So this basically has all of those in it. And then you start your conversations with those.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and that's free. And
That's
you can-
amazing. So it's got all that stuff. Yeah, okay. Because some of the
Yeah.
some of the Copilot references go to JSTOR and stuff, but so
Yeah.
you're saying that this one, wow.
So basically, what GPTs are is, you as a librarian should know this. This is what I think the library of the future is.
Yeah.
You guys collecting together knowledge and aggregating them into an actionable task agent. So if someone comes in, I'm studying, I'm doing nursing. I want to know everything about nursing, and I'm studying particularly oncology. Boom, you can build a GPT or show them how to make their own, where they can then do the research about the real stuff. And when you put knowledge in that you know is efficacious, then you know the stuff coming out is going to be real stuff. There's no hallucinations because it's based on something
And this is my, I know it's late, but my question, I'll reach out to you, is I guess I need to understand how to load, let's say Copilot as an example, but anyone, and to create, because I took notes from what you said earlier.
Yeah.
It's basically load the tool with our data, and that's what I'm not clear on, but that's because I haven't thought about it. So
yeah, so your basic prompt in ChatGPT, the way I do it, I set up my computer so I had to go tap tap,
right,
and it starts where I talk to it. I'd like to find out. I'd like to find out about a philosopher who might have something to say about social media. Can you find 3 philosophers whose philosophy is about something that might be related to social media? I think we're totally down the rabbit hole with the idea that we are spending all our time there and we're not going out enjoying the real world. Is there any philosopher that can speak to that? Give me a numbered list 3 philosophers and what they would think about this idea. So that's literally, I just talk to it like that, and then it puts the rest together, even Rabbit and everything, right? So it does that. So now it's going to give me so philosophy, believed in natural goodness of man, corrupting influence in society, emphasis on importance of direct, authentic experiences, and development of human genuine things. So it could keep on going. Henry David Thoreau, perfect, right? Thoreau would have viewed social media as a distraction from essential qualities of life. He might argue that compliance complicates life unnecessarily, pulling individuals. So you could do this about anything. Oh, Marshall McLuhan, sure, right? So there's 3 rabbit holes right there. And how long does that take me?
Right.
So
I'll just tell you something funny, something very much like this came up in class, and I mentioned Russo and Thoreau for a similar point. So it's impressive to me how it hits the mark pretty well sometimes.
Yeah. So what you get to do with ChatGPT Pro, that's $20 a month. It's a pizza a month, folks. You can spend it, right? You get plugins. And what that does is it gives you all kinds of little task bots that do things like create notes or look at a video and I'll make notes from it. DocMaker, there's hundreds of these that are already out there. And the GPT store, which is basically a bunch of knowledge that goes off and does a task. Dolly, it will make a cartoon yourself picture. Upload a picture of yourself and make a cartoon out of it. So these are tasking agents that do different things for you. Create a logo for you. Writing. I need write for me. I need you to help me with writing. A children's book. I actually used the children's book one. I think I put it over here on the side. So that's where I would invest the money. Once we at Broward College have Copilot Pro, you'll be able to create Copilots, which are the exact same thing. The cool thing about this is thousands of people are doing this because there's already a promise that you're going to get money if you get to be number 1 here. You're going to get 10 grand a month. So if you come up with a really great GPT, that's why, Josh, I'm going to be your partner in this, right? So if we come up with a philosophy chatbot that makes relevant information out of old dead people stuff, then I think you and I need to share that money. Then
We'll have a big party.
I'll take you scuba diving. But yeah, so that's it. So
Please don't forget the people in the audience from that.
I better get that copyright. I guess I can't copyright the idea until I execute it though. So, but I've already got the lesson planner, so I'll just build one of those tonight. But yeah, that's the kind of thing. And then this one's interesting, and I think that's for a tutor bot. But the ones I would also use, again, if you're doing research, definitely use Perplexity. It's free. I'm paying the $20 a month, and that's worthwhile. This EduAid though, $50 for a year. Jeez, I haven't even looked at what all it can do, but it can create a debate for you, a jigsaw activity. I don't even know what half the stuff is. So Abhishiba, are you an expert at this at all?
Yes, I'm using it now a lot for creating the rubric and creating the core outcomes. And what is the third one? I use it for just three main things.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I mean, creating stuff, and I did a couple of them. I'm still just kind of working my way around the interface, and then making resources and doing assessment measures and whatever. So taxonomy, scaffolding, I'm not even sure what some of these things mean. So yeah, I think it would be kind of cool to get somebody like you. I'd love to sit with you just for a little bit, see how you use it, see what you've done with it, then see if we can share the wealth and information. So anytime any of you want to go off like I did with Josh today and just kind of do a deep dive, I'm there. I'm fascinated with this whole idea. How can I, empower educators to kind of find their own thinking about this? So, and you guys are experts in other things that I don't know about. So,
we can talk tomorrow after a presentation.
Yeah. Well, thank you all very much. I'm blessed to have you guys as my friends and colleagues in doing this. So keep on doing the good stuff. I appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Created my pro account already. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I bought it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Good
All
night.
right. Take care,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye. See you next time.
See you
Bye.
See you
mañana.
on YouTube.